I had co-founded the Autistic Self-Reliance support network with a good friend of mine. We got the idea of how AI-powered supports could improve the medical and behavioral health of autistic and ADHD adults. We had 70 survey responses and like 4 or 5 interviews, and decision fatigue and paralysis edged out, and people were just like, no, you know what's killing me? The Starbucks drive-thru. I do not know what to order, or I don't know what to have for breakfast is a recurring nightmare. For so many people. So we created Decide that just guides your reflections, like just structured reflection to help you think something through and make sure you are making a good decision. That it cuts through the noise.
Welcome to the SVIC podcast, where we deliver tech insights without the hype. Join my co-host Joe Trinaski and me, Jordan Thibodeau, as we break down the latest in tech, cut through the hype, and host top industry guests for exclusive insights. Hey everyone, welcome to the Tech Podcast. We talk about tech with the hype, with some jokes, D-minus humor. My colleague Joe is away, he's probably in Hawaii, like buying an island, putting like oxen on it and things like that. But he'd be cool. He'd buy it and then have the Hawaiians like live on it with him and then give him the land back because he's a good dude. We are joined today by Shannan and Wesley, and they have launched a product called, or in the process of launching right now, Assistive Technologies. It's your personal decision assistant. I was playing with it. It's really cool. This helps people with neurodivergent backgrounds. Maybe you have ADHD, maybe you have autism or whatnot, and it's hard for you to make decisions. And this app helps you talk through your decisions so you can decide if this is the right thing for you to do or not. So I thought this is a really awesome app. I think it's great that they created this, and really excited to have them both on the show. So Shannan, Wesley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks. So maybe we could start with Shannan. Why y'all decide to create this app and kind of go into there?
Well, it was partially a result of all the AI hype. I was actually teaching computer science and designing computer science curriculum based on the needs and interests of girls K through 12, and I was going to all of these tech events as just part of getting to know technology leaders in town. And at one of them, it was right when OpenAI had kind of gone public, and all of the hype was really, really strong right in the beginning. And we had to go around in a circle at one of those like icebreakers. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? I'm not in tech. I'm a computer science teacher. This is ridiculous. And by the time they got to me, I was like, you know what? We should make apps. So basically, I had co-founded the Autistic Self-Reliance support network with a good friend of mine. We were trying to figure out a way to provide direct services to autistic adults. And then we got the idea, like, the technology exists that does a lot of the things that we need help with. But it's never been deployed in a way that's actually designed by us for us. I'm autistic and ADHD, and I have used every productivity app on the market and read all of the books. My copy of David Allen's Getting Things Done looks like some people's Bible. It's
he calls Getting Things Done.
Yeah.
My productivity sister, old school. Yes.
Back in the day.
I know.
Yeah. So I was like, why don't we just maybe we could do it ourselves, and then we could take whatever profits and put them back into direct services. So my co-founder and I went to a social enterprise accelerator. Or no, the first one was the pre-accelerator, Give Back Hack. And we pitched the idea and formed a team and won first prize. With our MVP, we had 2 MVPs that we created in 48 hours. Then we went off from there. We were able to get substantive funding from the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, about $400,000 to conduct research. Yeah, it was great. To conduct research on how AI-powered supports could improve the medical and behavioral health of autistic and ADHD adults. So we were able to design it with them. And the team that we formed at that hack stuck with us. So I had actually met Wes once before. We had met at a 1 Million Cups he had given a presentation on how to work with a developer. I had repeatedly called him Will, agreeing with him, but repeatedly calling him the wrong
Oh,
name.
I got one for you. I googled his receptionist who's really fantastic, and I was calling him Charlie all this time, and he was responding to it for years. And then one time, a receptionist he was training was next to him was like, "Who's Charlie?" I'm like, "The guy right next to you training, Charlie." He's like, "No, that his name is not Charlie." And he's like, "You're right, my name isn't Charlie. I've just been going by that for years." And what's hilarious is I'm the loudmouth HR person at Google, so everyone sees you say, "Hey, Charlie, what's up?" All the other Googlers are calling him Charlie. And then so by that time, his name was Charlie going forward. So Shannan, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do it at my level yet. So Wesley, you got the easy treatment from Shannan, so you're good.
It's good. When he actually told me his name, I was like, oh, so it's not Will. Okay. You want me to call you Wesley? I will.
At least he brought it up and was nice to you about it, so you're good.
Yeah.
So I cut you off, but you raised $400,000 from Ohio. So shout out to Ohio using their money there.
Yeah,
yes.
Developmental disabilities. Ohio's a tech first state, and they're trying to really invest in the Silicon heartland. And all of that, like, there's all the different things, but they really did actually put them.
Well, and think about you already thought about, but this is an LLM technology, and they're like, you know what? Here's $400,000. Let's take a shot at this. And so, kudos to them. Was there a person that you can publicly name that you worked with that we can shout out for thinking forward for tech from Ohio State?
The person who managed our grant was Keith Banner.
Okay, Keith Banner.
Amazing. Yeah.
Okay, well done, Keith. We like that. Yeah. Sweet. So I stole your thunder, interjected. Please continue. So now you're working on the app. Let's go for that.
Yeah. So we were working on the app. We got the money, and so Wes, our colleague April, who's our amazing UX designer and product officer, April and I all went full time. So we were able to go full time in R&D on the app, and also do it in like a collaborative research process with autistic and ADHD adults, because that was actually what we got funded, was the research. Mm-hmm. So then we were able to do that research and create a product that really answered exactly what we were asked for, like what people needed. Mm-hmm. So we created Decide. Like the first thing, like we actually had started thinking it was going to be multi-step tasks, like breaking down multi-step tasks. So the first pivot was actually during that original hackathon, when we did interviews with I think we had 70 survey responses and 4 or 5 interviews, and decision fatigue and paralysis edged out multi-step tasks. And people were just like, no, you know what's killing me? The Starbucks drive-through. I do not know what to order, or I don't know what to have for breakfast. Food. The decision of what to eat is a recurring nightmare for so many people.
Yeah.
Going back to that, we also found a really cool app called Goblin.tools. If you're familiar, they handle a lot of the multi-step decision breakdown that we were already trying to do. And we're like, they're killing it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. 50% of our viewers don't subscribe. So if you can hit that subscribe button, and better yet, like also. And if you can, comment, that'd be fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's go into the survey, though. You had 70 people fill out a survey. That is huge, because creating a survey people want to fill out, and then you're looking for neurodivergent type that struggle with mistake and focus. So can you talk about anything you learned about crafting a survey people want to actually fill out? Because in corporate, we're like, okay, well, you're forced to work here, so we're going to give you a survey. It takes 10 hours to complete, or you're fired. And then once those people leave that environment, like, oh, wait a minute, I can't force people to do my survey. What do I do?
We had, do you want to?
I can talk about it a little bit. So a lot of what we figured out is we narrowed everything down as much as possible. We're like, hey, what is the information we need and what's extra, right? So everything that was necessary, we were very clear, like, hey, fill it out first. And then we allowed them to just skip to every other page. So they're like, oh, hey, give us a little more information. Optional, very clearly optional. So people would not fill that out. And if they don't want to, we don't need that information. It would help us make better decisions, but we have our necessary information, and we have the stuff that is extra. Like, tell me 3 times you've ever, used this. I've taken far too many Deloitte surveys, and I know how they go. So it's like they want your entire life story every time, and I'm like, this is taking me 4 hours to complete.
Yeah. One of the things that like overall, we ended up having 580 research touch points over the course of the study with
Wow.
autistic and ADHD adults. It was like almost 400 of them were neurodivergent adults. And it was only asking them what we absolutely needed to, and telling them why, explaining why we're asking specific questions or what we're trying to do with the information. We were like, we're asking this because we're trying to help you make better decisions, and we want to do what you need, not what we think you need. And that I don't know if it works with everybody. It certainly works well with autistic people, because so many times people are just asking us all sorts of questions without explaining why. Like, I'm happy to cooperate. I'm very cooperative if I understand why. If I don't understand why, then I can give you my name, rank, and serial number, or whatever the army tells you to do. Like, I don't want to help you at all. Like, so,
I went through corporate good boy training at Google. Whatever you need, executive. What do you need? My clothes? You want my social security number, bank account? What I'm thinking right now, who I'm interested in outside of work? Sure, whatever you need. Yes, my lord. And I bend the knee.
yeah.
But you do it the right way. You ask questions. You're skeptical. So that's great.
Yeah.
So you're explaining to them, like, we're doing this because I like how you phrase, we're not just shoving a product down on you. We're trying to figure out what your needs are and give you the product that you want. And that's a great way of framing it, because when this new technology came out, people were just like, I'm just going to shove this technology into everywhere. And we don't really know if it's going to help you with a problem, but you should use it, which is not the best way of looking at it. I think it's the old saying of technology looking for a problem to solve compared to you're trying to solve a problem and then finding the right tools for it. So, yeah. So you took all the research surveys and then you use that to decide, okay, there's a need here. Goblin Tools is doing X, but actually the things of what should I order from Starbucks, because their menu never stops growing and growing and growing. How do I decide what to eat this morning? What clothes should I wear? So let's talk about that pivot and how you work that one through.
Yeah. April was really critical to that. She isn't interested in doing interviews, but she's a core member of our team. Mm-hmm. And I think that core of having a UX designer lead was really, and do all of those interviews was incredibly powerful, because she's a really good listener. And like, Wes can build anything. Like, I mean, he can build anything.
Nice.
What did you call yourself? A coding polyglot?
Yeah, coding polyglot.
Yeah.
I know easily 12 languages that I'm fluent in, and then I can jump into any stack just because I understand the fundamentals of development.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it makes it something where then what we could do, we were able to be very, very responsive to what people needed and wanted. So the interviews were things like, in the research, there's a lot of research on neurodivergent decision making that talks about like anxiety points. So speed of decision, like anytime somebody is asked to make a decision quickly, that's really hard. And also when somebody else is asking you and you have to, like, that sense that you're going to let somebody down. That's another big anxiety point. So we created something that was self-paced. And that just guides your reflections. So many autistic people, like, we don't want to be told what to do. So coming up with something that makes a decision for you, complete bomb. Nobody wanted that. Nobody trusts AI. Nobody wants anything. But because that distrust of AI came up a lot. But guided reflection, like just structured reflection to help you think something through and make sure you were making a good decision, that it cuts through the noise. Mm-hmm. And then the app makes a recommendation. Fantastic. So it doesn't say you have to do this. And you had Annie Duke on. I love Annie Duke.
You watch our show? Thank you. Yes, Annie. Okay, thank you so much. Annie is one of those, you've always said the worst thing that ever happened to you is meet one of your heroes or something. And so yeah. My dad, he used to be a police officer and he ran his own businesses and everything, but loved playing poker and would watch her. And eventually I went to Google. I had an opportunity to be like, I have 1 million subs, would you like to come on our channel? And so she had a book, and so I got to meet her, and she's a person that I liked, and I met her personally, met her one-on-one, and she's even better than her public persona. So I'm glad you like AA do too. So yeah.
Yeah, like what she says about decision quality being, or outcome quality plus hidden information plus, or outcome quality is decision quality plus hidden information plus luck. There, that's it.
Yeah.
What you get is how good your decision making process was, the stuff you had no idea was coming or you just couldn't see, and then look, just, somebody turned left instead of right. Like there was no way to predict it ahead of time. And we wanted to capture that because I think one of the biggest things that causes so much anxiety around decision making is thinking you can get to a decision quality that overrides hidden information and luck. You can't.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can just have good decision quality. That's it.
Right. Exactly. We like to hindsight bias ourselves. We're like, oh, why did I go to that party? That jerk was there, and what a terrible decision. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on, time out. You didn't know that person was going to be in the first place. That was luck that person came across and showed up to you. So don't be crucifying yourself with that. And so that's a fantastic point. Wesley, let's just go into building this app. What languages you used, and then how did you land on the shifting sands, which is this LLM space where it's just every 5 minutes, oh, did you see this new model, new benchmark? Oh my God, it's great. And then 5 minutes later, actually, that one sucks. This new one's even better. Actually, everything's garbage. Talk about the whole entire process and any advice you have for engineers thinking about putting LLMs into their product.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring up April again. I know she's not here, but
April saw I was on the show and she's like, I don't want to do this. Shannan, make an excuse saying like I don't like going on podcasts. I'm going to the Lex Friedman show. I still want to talk to Jordan. It's like, I understand. It's okay.
Right now.
Oh, well, hello, April. We'll get you on your next time.
But no, someone once asked me that, what's the best programming language to use? And I was like, the one that's already being used. Don't rebuild something. Don't chase the new thing every time, right? If you're working in a Java Spring Boot, as much as I will detest every time I work with Java, use Java Spring Boot. If you're using Python, use Python. We built ours using Fast API and Flutterflow. And we use Flutterflow so that way April and I could live collaborate. It's a no-code, low-code tool that still allowed me to go in and write custom Dart functions where April could then handle the UX UI without having to write a single line of code. So the ability to collaborate was the most important part of it. And then using Python, we definitely wanted to use something that is easy to pick up. And if you're using LLMs and not using Python, what are you doing at this point? There's just so many tools. There's so many amazing tools out there. Most of what we did was, we are technically using LangChain on the back end, but most of it is me writing custom LangChain wrappers around everything because I wanted certain functionality and I didn't want to not know what was going on. So so we use Python and Fast API with LangChain on the back end. We use SQL, as everybody does. But we are also working towards a personalization feature, which will be using Neo4j and using a graph database in order to retrieve your personalization options dynamically and depending on your decision.
So a way to maybe it was going to remember the conversations in the past and then, or go ahead.
Kind of. We don't want to be invasive in that, like every decision, like that's not who we want to be. We want to give you the option to be like, hey, I'd like to personalize this. For example, I have medical issues that prevent me from eating vegetables. Every time I ask what's for dinner, it'll be like, hey, do you want something healthy? And I'm like, of course I want something healthy. Check. And then it'll recommend a salad. Every single time. Because that's something healthy. And it always does it. So I can't do that. So I can't use the app to really decide that unless I go through the entire process of being like, hey, what's for dinner? I can't eat vegetables and I'm looking for something with this. I have to type out a much longer prompt, and that's not what people want when they're in decision burnout. So having the option to be like, hey, here's some information about me. I can't eat vegetables. or I am vegan, or whatever your dietary needs are. hey, I am sensory averse to like I don't like people like bumping into me or stuff like this. I prefer to be communicated in this kind of style and this manner. All of these things can go into the decision making process and then be fed into the LM without you having to type it out every single time. And that's where we're kind of going from next. We're trying to remove all friction from the process and just get people, to think about the problems and their decisions and make them.
Fantastic. Any feedback for engineers who are thinking about deploying LLMs for the first time? Your feedback about keeping them on the rails or hallucinations, things like that. Or what are your thoughts?
LLMs aren't a magic wand. That's the number one thing I want to say. Is like they're great. They're really good at breaking down text and being a fancy autocomplete. And we don't want to give them more power than like they need. I love all the research being done into agentic AI, where they're like, hey, this AI should be able to do its own thing without any person involved. I also, for our audience, we really want to make sure we're having a human in the loop. We want to make sure we have someone who's there to keep it on the rails. One of the first features we built out was the ability to flag AI responses and be like, hey, this is incorrect, or it's using biased language, or something's going wrong. We get that, and I can see it on the dashboard in the back end. We are always trying to look into things, and we're not trying to pick a new model every few days. We're not trying to keep up, because that would be a fool's errand. We are using Gemini 1.5 Flash because it is cheap, reliable, it's giving us results we want. And if we need to change something, we will be using tools to like help us test every step of the way. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm going to present a picture of the app, and maybe we can just, maybe Shannan or Wesley, you could talk through just the experience and how you kind of landed on this. So let me make it so people can see it. So the decision is, should I take a walk or keep working?
So this is the final screen you'll see in the decision-making process. When you type in, should I take a walk or keep working, it'll immediately then pull down questions generated by the AI to try to figure out what's most important to you. They're like, hey, have you accomplished all your work? Do you have any upcoming deadlines? Are you feeling restless? Stuff like this. Stuff that will help you get to the bottom of how you are feeling. So then, once you do that, the AI will then generate their suggestion list of bullet points. So they're saying, hey, you're feeling stressed and tired. A walk will help you feel better. You can do your work later. You don't have any upcoming deadlines. And then it gives a suggestion along with a confidence score. Confidence score is also generated by the LLM. And basically has it assess itself to be like, hey, how confident are you given this information about the quality of this decision?
And that goes back to also a visual reminder for people of hidden information and luck. Like we can't say 100% because you can make the best decision possible and still have an undesirable outcome. That's just being alive. One of the things that I really enjoy is the answer more function that was there in the bottom left. The other day I was painting my living room ceiling, and when I finished, there was a smell like it was me. It was bad. And I was asking, and I was just laying on the floor. I was like, I can't move. I should shower. I can't move. I'm too tired. Maybe I could just go to sleep here. Like, what are my options? And I pulled out the app because I was like, I cannot go to sleep like this. And I asked, should I take a shower? And it asked me several questions. And then it was like, you're really tired. You should just wait and take a shower later. And I was like, that is not the right answer. So I answered more. And that time it actually asked, like, how dirty are you? Which, like, I am very dirty.
Right.
Was the answer. So, like, if it's not asking the right questions, if it's not getting at something, you can answer more. And one of the pieces of feedback we've gotten is that as people go through this process, they know before they get to the final screen because they're they're just thinking it through, and they're like, oh, I know what I need to do. So that then by the end, when I'm like, oh, the LLM they didn't ask me the thing, like the most important question, like, how filthy are you?
Right.
So I'm going to ask it to ask me more questions because it's not getting at the right thing. And it's that quality of being able to teach people how to make better decisions, even when they're not using the app, that is, we think, really key and really different. This isn't something that people we aren't trying to get people to be dependent on it. This is an assistive technology.
Right.
So people with brains like ours sometimes just can't make decisions. It doesn't or can't follow through on what we need to do. And we need help during those times. But the rest of the time we can make decisions. And so we don't want to offload that cognitive capacity. We just want to support it.
Exactly, like an emergency phone a friend in app form. And it seems like there's a cognitive behavioral therapy element to this. I like, and when I say cognitive behavioral therapy, for people who are watching, I'm not a therapist. It's a way of looking at your thoughts and disassociating them from you and your ego and questioning them and challenging them. Or when you might get into a thought loop of you are anxious about something, but then you get angry because you're anxious. And it's, you forget you're not even dealing with reality anymore. You're dealing with, why am I anxious? I'm angry at myself. I'm terrible. It's like, wait a minute, whoa. Having anxiety is completely normal.
Yeah.
Me being angry at myself, like, show yourself some love and take a couple steps back. Again, not a therapist. So one thing I like about the button of ask me more questions, or let me get to it real quick. It was, I had it right here. Nope, I missed it again. Answer more.
Yep.
I was thinking there, for myself, sometimes there will be events that there'll be a lot of people I want to go to. I want to see people who love, or people who love me, people who want to get back at me, people who I like, and hopefully love me too. And then I'm just like, I don't want to go to this event.
Yeah.
And if I'm speaking to the right person, though, who knows my own psyche, we could, like, well, let's talk that through more, Jordan. Maybe there's something that you're putting in the way here mentally that to prevent you to having that good outcome, because then if you go to that, you'll be happy, and it might then look at your ego of saying, oh, like, oh, woe is me, and it might make you look at it differently. What I'm getting at is, do you envision the aspect of the app where if people are giving certain responses, but the app is going to be able to maybe challenge them a little bit and say, maybe think through those feelings a little bit more so that maybe they can develop, or does that make sense? Sorry, the question's kind of run on.
Absolutely. No, I hear what you're saying. One of the big things that is going into our personalization feature is your goals, right? I don't like New Year's resolutions. I like to make a theme of the year, right? So this year my theme is going to be travel. I want to go, every time I have an opportunity to go travel and see a new place, I'm going to want to do it, right? So if I set that in the app, and I could be like, hey, my goal this year is to travel more. And then I'm like, oh, hey, should I go on this vacation to, Florida? And then the app will automatically be like, hey, you're saying you don't want to, but like your goal is this. You should try it, or you should. So it's a way to give yourself a direction and allow the app to help guide you that direction, versus like, AI overlords being like, you said you're traveling, you're traveling.
I like that's great. Well, you're already doing that's fantastic. So you can say, I want to be more social, but then I sometimes give myself reasons of not being social, and so kind of help me think that through. So great.
Well, there's also one more thing, is that this is the first app in a planned, like, we've been calling them a suite.
Okay.
Like, we're gonna do more. And the goal is to have them all connect on the back end. So when you personalize once, it populates across all of them, keeping the information in our system de-identified from the login data, but that you can then do, like, if we have an emotion tracker or a dysregulation tracker, then there'd be other sources of data to pull into the decision as well. So it might, like, on the back end, if it's tied to your calendar, then it could know that you are, like, you have a crazy work week. So maybe the party tonight isn't the best decision, or unless that's what fuels you and things like that. But like the potential down the road for pooling data sources, and that's just a hypothetical, but the potential for pulling in data from other places in your life, but keeping it as within the ownership of the individual. Like, we are not going to sell it to anyone. We do not own it. And one of our goals is, and this is super ambitious, and like, this is where we'll succeed if autistic and ADHD and if people want us to, we'll succeed. And if we don't, that's okay, because they didn't want us to. But we want to have the largest pool of data on the autistic lifespan ever, which is not hard. It's a very low bar. There's very little data out there. But if we can have that, then we can flip the power dynamic in autism research and funding. And right now, that $2 billion Autism Cares Act that just passed Congress, like 4.3% of research funding goes towards anything after the age of 18. There are over 6 million autistic people in the US. Over 5 million of them are adults. But only 4.3% of that funding goes towards that. And the job outcomes, the mental health outcomes, the quality of life and the length of life all show that neglect. There's some really stark figures there. I won't say them right now, but they're bad.
I had no idea about this, and is it just speculation? Is it because researchers are more focused on, okay, maybe autism rates are speculating, autism rates are increasing, so let's focus on what's going on in childhood development to see what we can do to help these kids. But then, as far as someone who's an adult, they're like, well, they have autism now. We don't have as much resources there, so we much rather spend it in the beginning of a child's life. Is there any logic behind what they're doing? I mean, there is logic, but what's the rationale? Yeah.
The primary funding goes to detection and cure. So that's eliminating autism.
Genetically, like in utero.
So, it's not something that, as a company, we agree with. We prefer to support people through other lives. That's where our mission is. So that's what we're aiming to do.
Yeah.
Great.
There's a lot of... it gets into very sticky political sorts of things, but the Autism Cares Act was passed through advocacy by Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks came into being, I think it was like, is it 2005? I think it was 2000. It might be 1995. It's something that ends in 5. So there. But when it came into existence, it basically took over the other, like, 3 major advocacy organizations at the time. And they all merged together, and they made their policy to get federal funding. And it was all stewarded by parents and caregivers. And in particular, the person that founded Autism Speak, the guy was like the VP of General Electric or something like that, or vice chancellor or something like that. Like, he was a big deal dude. So all the money was there. And then when we ended up with the current situation, like right after that happened, that's when the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network came into being. And it was specifically to push back against non-autistic people making those calls and setting the bar for research.
Right. So having people who are autistic having a seat at the table to actually say what they think the future should be, which also ties into your app where you're saying we want to channel the voices of people who are autistic, learn from them, and make apps that would be something they wanted instead of just pushing something down on them. It's interesting. I think it's great what y'all are doing. And I had no idea that just autistic people after adulthood, it's the research, the money is not there, and so we have no longitudinal data of how are they doing, what are they going through. So that's great information. Let's go to I saw that so far your app has been really well received by people who have been using it. I'm going to link in our description that people should check it out and download it, because I have it downloaded. So people are saying, autistic user, wait, I need this. autistic user, it made me aware of my coping mechanisms like I never have been before, which is kind of going into CBD to a degree now, making them aware of what are some of my trigger points or stories I've told myself. ADHD user, decide helps me make hard decisions when my brain's electrical cord feels like they're underwater. Autistic user, this might sound silly, but that was helpful. There are questions I probably could ask myself, but I'm too lazy and unmotivated, and I can't even get to those questions in my brain. I'm noticing how often I ask my partner, should I do this, yes or no? It's cool that I now can ask the app. And that's something Joe and I were talking about. So when I worked at Slack, so Salesforce for a period of time, I was trying to implement some LLMs to help with internal customer service questions. And one of the saws or attacks against this was, well, people like the personal touch and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, you're in HR, so you're probably kind of geared towards being social. So asking certain questions or whatnot doesn't even phase you. Like you'll push yourself into difficult conversations. There are people where, even myself sometimes, I just don't want to ask that question, or I just want to speak to a human. And I just want to just go to an AI because I feel like I'm imposing. Like, I don't want to go ask Jenny this question. She's too busy. Or this AI is always here. So it seems like this app is tying me to that too, where this person feels like, even though it's my partner and I love her, I don't want to burden her. So instead, maybe I'll ask the app first. And this is not people's relationships are going away now, they're going to the app. It's more of, this person wants to see first if they can kind of help self-triage. And if they can't, of course, then go to their partner. So done with my sermon. What do you all think? Does that align with what you guys are trying to do?
That's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah. We're trying to give people the tools they need to live their best lives every single day. And then then ask them, hey, is this actually serving you?
Yeah.
Did we give you a hammer? Do you need a screwdriver? What's going on here?
If you need a screwdriver, we'll switch. Like at this point, we're pretty clear that people do need a hammer. The hammer is a good thing in the toolbox. What's the next tool we need to build? We're trying to make it very, very responsive. And it's not just, we designed it by and for, like, we're autistic and ADHD. And we designed it for people with brains like ours. But with the rise of long COVID, with chemo brain, like when people have cancer and they're in chemo, they get a brain fog. That's kind of anytime anybody who's had a stroke, there are a lot of health conditions that have either short-term or long-term impacts on your brain, and that the average person makes 33,000 decisions a day. Most of them are not vital. They are not things we need to be wasting our capacity on. Okay. Like I don't care what I get at the Starbucks menu. Like really, like at the end of the day, I don't care. I just need to get something that will caffeinate me and keep me from killing anyone.
Yeah. The decision fatigue, decision paralysis is brutal.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of people that need this kind of support. And I think right now wherever you stand with any of the state of the world stuff, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff coming at us 24/7, and just not sweating the small stuff.
Yep.
It can help.
That's true. It could feel just overwhelming of so many things are coming to you at once, and it just puts you in paralysis mode and you can't make any decisions, but life continues moving forward. And then that leads to even more decisions to be made till you just want to crawl onto your bed and not do anything. So well said. Let's go into, you made a really good point about, we're not, all the data is anonymized. We're focusing on using information to improve the product. Privacy is really important to us. And I think this is something we would want at Google, but we were never able to align our business model sustainably that way. So we had to go ad revenue. And what I've noticed for your business model is, first of all, is great is the first 10 guided decisions per month are free, so people can play with it and use it, which is great. And then you have a subscription, which is $3.99 a month, which is super affordable, and then $4.99 in annual subscriptions. So I think it's great that your billing model is aligned with the needs of your users, because then you're only beholden to them and not figuring out how much I need to put advertisers in here. How can I get information to sell them ads? So can you talk a little bit about how you land on your pricing structure? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, we asked what people could afford. And it's not what the market could support, in the sense of, if we were saying this is like marketing it purely as an AI tool, that would be a higher price point. But the reality is that 85% of autistic adults are or underemployed. It's not a high, which is why nobody is designing for them, right? They don't have the money. What we want to do is move money around within our community. So if we can keep the price point low enough that those of us who are employed can pay it, then we can keep the free aspects for those who aren't there yet. And if we can build capacity within our community, if we can like take down some of that cognitive overload, then we can get more people who are in the workforce. And we can kind of increase that economic base. And our goal is not an exit. Our goal is a social enterprise. We are pouring money back into the community through our nonprofit arm. And we've got suicide prevention work in progress. We've got mobility autonomy, communication autonomy projects that are going. Like, we've got a whole bunch of things through our nonprofit arm. And so I think that's a really different kind of like, most people, when they're doing a tech startup, are like, I want to be a tech CEO. That was not something that was ever on I have a PhD in women, gender, and sexuality studies.
I was going to say, the anti-CEO who doesn't want to be the CEO tend to be the best CEOs. The one that look at leadership as a burden. It's like, no, I'm not doing this to go to the Forbes 30 under 30 felons list. Someone needs to do this.
We need to do this. We can trust that we're going to do it and not try and take advantage of anybody. We can't trust that we'll do it perfectly, but we can trust that we will admit our mistakes and try and course correct.
People love the authenticity and the humbleness of, we're trying to figure this all out as we go. Certain startup founders I've worked with have that, and people just love it, because it's like, I'm a normal human. I'm not God's gift to X, Y, and Z. I'm just trying to figure this thing out and trying to make you a good product. And I'm putting my heart and soul into this. Now, I was going to say, Wesley, being that there's a huge social component to this, has Google or any of the cloud providers you've worked with, is there any special discounts that you can get on the compute costs, or if your compute? Oh, go ahead. Okay. Jordan, do we have 5 hours, Jordan?
No. Unfortunately, no. We haven't actually gotten any real discounts. Mostly because we are working through a for-profit arm, not. So we have a weird business model where we have a nonprofit that owns part of the for-profit. It's legal mess. Not my expertise. I'm going to be 100% honest.
Oh, a nonprofit that has a for-profit. One reminds me of a certain company with Sam something.
We're switching it now. We're actually in the process. Our lawyer was like, this is going to screw you up down the road. So the nonprofit will still own 20% of the for-profit, but the for-profit, we have a resource sharing agreement between them, and we share employees. The for-profit will be the common paymaster.
Okay. No, I was going to say is, when you're seeing these people crucifying OpenAI over this, and people are saying, "Oh, every startup's going to do this," and you were doing something like this, and you're like, "This is hell."
This was not.
Talk about how difficult that structure is.
It's I had no idea what I was doing, so I was literally reading through like IRS documentation and trying to figure out what we were allowed to do. We started with the nonprofit, and then the idea for the for-profit was always to feed the nonprofit work. So we created it with originally the nonprofit being the common paymaster. And originally we were going to have the nonprofit own everything, but then some advisors said, don't do that. That gives up your control of your IP. You need to have more flexibility with it. And I'm glad we did, because now we are in the process of switching it so that everything stays the same, except the for-profit runs payroll and does the administrative stuff. But that then allows us to pay our nonprofit employees what we pay our engineers.
Oh, so you can step up how much you pay your nonprofit employees and give them a livable wage. Because nonprofit salaries are tough, because you have this game of, I'm speaking to the choir. You know more about this, but for people who are watching, Jordan gives $100 to Salvation, the Red Cross, and Jordan wants to see at least maybe 2% or 3% go to administrative, and then 97% go out to the people.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, how can Red Cross hire the best when they can only pay so little to their sales or their administrative costs? Mm-hmm. So thank you for bringing it up. I didn't know about the IP issue. So if you were owned by a nonprofit, then your IP is non-transferable, or what's
it would be owned by the board, or the board would control it, the board of the nonprofit.
Okay.
Which would just mean, like, if we ever were big idiots and alienated our entire board and they fired us, we would lose everything we'd built.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first solution is don't be an idiot, but after that, just for ease of being able to make decisions,
mm-hmm.
It is easier when it's just a few people making the decisions that are on the ground, like with.
That's so true. We talk about that on our show, that people see these mega companies like Google and Facebook, and they say, "Oh, like, how come they can't create new products here that are successful and iterate quickly?" It's like, try coordinating. I mean, me and Joe, it's tough for us to coordinate our restaurant plan. Well, actually, we go to the same barbecue place repeatedly, so we're good. But one time we add one person to that, and that just changed the whole entire dynamics of like where we're going to eat. Should it be Mexican? Should it be barbecue? I have these allergies. I can't afford this, and blah, blah, blah. And imagine that, but with 200,000 employees in tech, and you're trying to get any project done. It's just impossible. So being able to maintain that tight feedback loop and focusing on the end user is great. Wesley, would love to down the road, if you get to a point where these the cloud costs or the API costs are getting up there, sending me a message, and maybe I can see if I can reach the people in Google to see if there's anything you can do so far as maybe a discount or something. Can't guarantee, but it's a good story for Google that you're using Gemini Flash to help people who are neurodivergent so they can make better decisions in their life. Like if I was a marketing team at Google, I'd be all over this right now. So yeah.
One of the big reasons we are using Gemini is because of the generous free tier of Gemini. And so during testing, we didn't pay a dime for LLM calls because their free tier was so generous. Yeah. And then now that we're going to production, obviously we're paying.
Yeah. We have a question here from one of our users, Daniel. Now, Daniel, thank you for joining early. Appreciate it. Why do you think people with ADHD deplete energy faster? That's open to you too.
I can only speak, like, I don't have any scientific back on this, but I can speak from my own experience, is that I can hear every sound in this house. I can hear footsteps upstairs. I can hear the dog over there. I'm processing a million things all at once. When I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm also thinking about, okay, now that Neo4j database, do we have all the data in here? Now, how do I get a retriever? I'm coding while we're having this conversation. I have 44 streams going all at once. So when you have a brain that just operates and just runs and you cannot get it to stop, of course you're going to run out of, your computer's going to overheat. Your CPU is going to burn out way faster because you are doing so much all the time. Yeah. And everything is, again, every decision is like refinancing my house, or should I move to Scotland, or, every decision feels at that level. So when you're making 33,000 house refinancing decisions, you're going to get burned out real quick. There's no prioritization. There's no slowdown. There's no breaks. That's been my personal experience. Now, not everybody has that. I'm not going to speak for all of a massive population, but that's me.
There's a neuroscience basis for that. Like, neurodivergent thinkers tend to be bottom-up processors, versus neurotypical thinkers tend to be top-down. So if you're a top-down processor, you're like looking at the world and you're interpreting it through like what you know about the world. And if something doesn't make sense within a category, you're going category down. Okay? If you're a bottom-up processor, you're interpreting all of the data. And if something doesn't go with a category, the category is no longer good. So you have to redo the categorization or the taxonomy in order to incorporate the new information. So like Wes is saying with the sensory stuff, like your typical baby brain will prune, like it's has a lot of extra connections, but it'll prune and it'll prioritize what it learns is important about its environment. So like your voice, like we're talking to you, it would be your voice. But our brains did not prune in that way. So it's still hearing the dog, it's still hearing, like it's giving everything equal importance. And then the filtering has to be done kind of consciously. And it's not like it's the thing you're thinking about doing all the time, but it's taking more effort because it's not a subconscious automatic process.
You can,
well said.
Bringing this back to like LLMs and tech, if you're familiar with KANs, I'm going to mispronounce this, Kolmogorov-Arnold networks, where they, instead of training every single parameter on your 14 billion LLM, they pick the correct one, like the important ones, and they cut everything else out. It's a new architecture that's been recently proposed, and it is much more efficient, but our brains don't do that. We train every parameter of your LLM, every 14 billion. We have trillions. If you think about an LLM with these 304 billion, 405 billion parameter LLMs, and then we have trillions upon trillions, it takes so much effort to work with. So, yeah.
Well said. AI show, AI analogy connected to the app and neuroscience. 10-10, you win today. Well done. I like it. This is... there's those conversations you want to go on forever. I wish I had more time. I'm already keeping it 23 minutes over. Let's, first of all, I want to make sure people see the website. Y'all who are watching, there's a link in the description. I'll post it again. But the app is called Decide. And you can get it at itiassistivetechnologies.com. You should check it out in Android. I've been playing with it. I think it's fantastic, and they're doing great work. How can we help you two besides getting the word out? Is there some place you want us to direct folks to? Leaving it open to you.
Get the word out and give us feedback. Like, again, we want to build the right tool.
Yes.
If you are like, hey, this isn't fitting my needs, or if there's a personalization option that you're like, hey, I know you can be like, oh, you want me to speak in a concise format or a professional format or a friendly format. Can you put a sarcastic format in there? I really want to see what it's like. By the way, we already do. It's an Easter egg.
Nice.
Only for developers.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
We're not sharing that one.
It's like Brat GPT that just sasses you.
Yeah. Sassy GPT. It's great.
Yeah.
But so if you need something new, tell us. And, there's very few things that we can't build with our team because we have an incredible team working on this.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is such a great use case for AI and helping people like this. So kudos to you for both of you making this happen, and also April, who's ghosting me because she's going to Lex Friedman podcast. I'm not bitter. It's okay. Just joking, April. It's all good and hood. And thank you for working on this. Thank you for sharing your story. Shout out to Maj, who was our member of the month for January, who connected the dots here. And if you two could just stay posted for a second. For folks watching a live stream, thank you very much for joining. Please think of someone in your community who could benefit from them. Think of someone who's neuroatypical. Think of someone who just wants to learn about software being created. April's in the comment section saying, "I'm here. Hi, April." Think of folks who are neuroatypical, who are developing apps and think maybe they can or cannot do it, and see the wonderful work that April, Shannan, and Wesley are doing right now. So share a link. The audience, thank you all for joining and watching us. I'll see you all in Discord. Talk to you later. Peace.